everyone, and welcome to the University of Guelph Arboretum. My name is Michelle, and I'm the Summer Naturalist here at the Arboretum. And today I'm at Victoria Woods, and I'm super excited to talk to you guys about one of my favorite groups of animals, and that is the Anurans. Now, I think for a lot of you guys, the word Anurans sounds unfamiliar. You may not know what group of animals I'm talking about just yet. But I think if I describe what Anurans are, a lot of you will know exactly what group of animals I'm talking about. So Anurans are animals with short bodies. They have two big beautiful eyes on the top of their heads, a large mouth, and two very long back legs that are excellent at jumping. I'm talking all about frogs and toads. So frogs and toads belong to the class of amphibians. Amphibians is a class of animals, so us as humans, we belong to the class Mammalia, and frogs and toads belong to the amphibian class. And within the amphibians, there are the salamanders, the caecilians, and the frogs and toads. So frogs and toads belong to the order Anura. And Anura basically means without tail. So adult frogs and toads are amphibians that don't have a tail. But what's really cool is at some point, frogs and toads do have a tail. And so to show off frogs and toads' life cycle, I'm actually be using one of our biodiversity sheets. So the University of Guelph Arboretum makes these awesome biodiversity sheets on a variety of topics. They're great educational resources and are available for purchase from our website. And today I'm going to be using the pond life biodiversity sheet. So right now is actually an awesome time to observe frog and toad life cycle because they're actually starting to breed either right now or in the next coming months. So if you keep your ears open, especially around dusk or dawn, you'll often hear frogs or toads calling. So what calling does is the male will call to basically advertise himself to the females of, hey, I think I'd be a pretty good mate. And once the male and female frog or toad find each other and mate, the female will lay a lot of eggs. Some female, depending on the species, can lay thousands of eggs. And for toads, this is what an adult toad looks like, and this is what their eggs look like. They're basically little black specks encased in jelly, and they'll lay those in water. And so depending on the species of frog or toad and the temperature of the water, in 1 to a few weeks, those eggs will hatch into little tadpoles. So this is what for a toad, this is what tadpoles look like. And what I think is really cool is tadpoles look just about nothing like their adult parents. And so tadpoles are fully aquatic, and that means they use gills to breathe underwater. And instead of having arms and legs to walk around on land, they actually use their tail to swim. And as that little tadpole grows and grows, something pretty special happens. It starts growing legs. So that little tadpole will start growing arms and legs. Its tail will get shorter and shorter, and it'll start developing lungs. And eventually, that little tadpole will grow up to look like an adult frog or toad, and it'll be ready to hop out onto land and live on land. And what's really beneficial about having that life cycle of starting off in the water and growing up to live on land is that the adult frog or toad doesn't compete for the same food as the tadpoles. So as tadpoles, frogs and toads will eat plant matter. A lot of the time they'll eat algae. And as adults, frogs and toads, a lot of them will use their really long and powerful tongues to catch insects. And so by living in different places and eating different foods, the adults never compete for the same food as young. Now I keep saying frogs and toads, and some of you might be wondering, what is the difference between a frog and a toad? And I'm super excited to welcome some awesome guests to show off the difference between frogs and toads. So bear with me for a moment while I get them out. So first up, I have Matilda, and I think Matilda is just about the cutest American toad You can see that her skin is a bit rough. She has warts and it looks a bit drier. At the top of her head, she actually has these two glands, and these are poison glands. So don't ever look at toads because they do have poison glands. And that poison gland actually serves as a really important defense mechanism. So by having poison glands, American toads do a really good job of convincing other animals in their area to not eat them. And so it deters predators from eating toads. A big myth I hear a lot of the times is that if you hold a toad, you'll get warts. And that's wrong. So I can hold toads all day long and not get any warts. Now our next guest that I'm going to show off is, I think, the cutest little gray tree frog. And his name is Freddy. So here we have Freddy the gray tree frog, and you can see his skin is smoother and shinier than Matilda's. So he looks like he's wet all the time, and she looks like she's basically dry. And that's because of the difference in their skin. So both frogs and toads use their skin to breathe. Their skin is very permeable. It allows for water and oxygen to go in and out. Now for toads, they have thicker, more keratinized skin. And what that means is they are able to hold water in better. They don't dry up as easily. And for frogs that don't have as thick skin, they need to stay wet because they will dry out easier. So one really easy way to tell frogs and toads apart is by looking at their skin. Another way to tell them apart is actually by looking at where you find them. So because toads are less prone to dry out, you can sometimes find them farther away from land. Frogs, on the other hand, really need to stay close to water because they are at risk of drying out on land. So if you look at their skin and look at where you find them, you can often tell frogs and toads apart. And I have to give a super big thank you to Jenny Pierce from Sensational Snakes for lending me these awesome animal ambassadors. These guys are animal ambassadors for Sensational Snakes, and their whole job is teaching people all about their species. I wouldn't recommend you go out and you catch a wild frog or toad because you wouldn't want to accidentally hurt or harm them. I'm using these guys because this is their job. They're animal ambassadors and they're great at it. Now I love finding frogs and toads while I'm out and about, not just because they're one of my favorite groups of animals, but because if you find a frog or a toad, it means that the water in your area is pretty good. So these guys are great species indicators of poor or good water. Because their skin is so permeable and it absorbs so many things from their environment, if the water behind me was polluted, it would be really harmful to all the frogs and toads in that area, and they would probably die. So finding frogs and toads in your area means that the water is good. And these guys aren't only important because they act as environmental indicators for water, but they also act as both predator and prey in really important ways. So as little tadpoles, frogs and toads are an important food source for bigger fish or birds, and so it's really important to have them in the environment for those bigger predators. And as adults, these guys are excellent insect control. So these guys will eat things like mosquitoes or really any insect they can get, they'll probably eat. So these guys are important in so many ways, so I just love finding them while I'm out and about. Now I really hope you guys enjoyed learning all about frogs and toads. I really enjoyed teaching you guys about frogs and toads, and I hope next time you're out and about, Victoria Woods is a great spot in the Arboretum to find frogs and toads. Maybe if you keep your eyes open, you just might spot one out here in the Arboretum. And of course, you can find them really just about in any freshwater habitat. So any pond or stream, any aquatic habitat close to your home is a good place to keep your eyes, and this time of year especially, your ears open for frogs and toads. So I hope you guys will join me next week for our next video. And I'll see you guys then.